Hey, what's up, guys? Kayak Mike here. This video is going to be dedicated to the Ohio Inland River Series boundaries, and we're not going to go over anything else. If you want the rules, how to enter, etc., find that video elsewhere on the channel. We are opening, this used to be the Scioto River only. We are opening it up to 6 more bodies of water, so I feel it's important that we have a video dedicated just to the boundaries. We're also going to explain why there's 4 reservoirs within these boundaries. Also, it's bank and kayak only, no boats. If you're a boat fisherman, I do apologize, but you have plenty of representation out there. This is for the bank and kayak fishermen who fish inland rivers in Ohio. Real quick, first explanation of why there's 4 reservoirs. The 4 reservoirs that are within legal fishing boundaries are Caesars Creek, East Fork Lake, O'Shaughnessy up in Columbus, which is the part of the Scioto River, and Griggs, which is part of the Scioto River in Columbus. Griggs and O'Shaughnessy were already part of the Scioto River, so those aren't being added; those already existed. But those other 2 reservoirs are pretty big, and the main reasons we're adding them is one, I don't see a competitive advantage to have those. Are there blues in Caesars? Yes, but there's blues in the Scioto. There's blues in the Muskego. Like, there's blues in every single one of these bodies of water. Um, and I truly don't feel there's a competitive advantage to be gained really on any of these bodies of water. I've gotten messages from people on every single one of these bodies of water saying they're going to walk away with this trail because they think that their body of water is the best body of water on this list. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But the main reason is Ohio can be tricky because everything's dammed down to the Ohio River. All of our water in Ohio flows to the Ohio River, and if we have a bad week of rain, all the rivers can be blown out and be extremely unsafe. In the past, we have had to postpone, or we've had to take people off of their kayaks and force them to fish from the bank. This way, now that we have 4 reservoirs, if for whatever reason we have terrible weather, we can just say, hey, only those 4 reservoirs are legal fishing for this particular event, so we don't have to postpone it, reschedule it, any of that kind of stuff. So that's why those 4 reservoirs are included in our boundaries. One, there's no competitive advantage. I truly don't feel like there's any competitive advantage. I fished on all 4. And 2, now we never have to postpone an event. This schedule is locked in. If the river conditions are terrible, we can just go out and say, hey, only hit those 4 reservoirs. But now let's get into the meat of what this video is supposed to be. If you scroll down here in the description of the event, you have your boundaries, your written boundaries, the name of it, southern boundary, northern boundary. So Caesars Creek, the confluence of Caesar Creek and Little Miami is the lower boundary, the southern boundary. The Route 380 bridge in New Burlington is the northern boundary. I'm going to go to the southern and northern boundary of every single Ohio Inland River Series body of water. Tributaries are not allowed. You cannot fish tributaries. That would defeat the purpose of having boundaries. Does that make sense? Sometimes people get upset that we can't fish tributaries. Well, then it's no longer these bodies of water. It's these bodies of water plus whatever tributary you're saying. So, we have to have borders. You can't have an event without borders. You have to have borders. So you are not allowed to fish tributaries. You have to fish the main channel of everything we're about to go over. So this is your southern border of the Caesars Creek. This part of the Little Miami is still in play for the Little Miami boundaries. So let's say you decide to launch your kayak somewhere here in Caesars Creek and you do a float. You can continue floating down. This is all legal fishing waters on Little Miami. This is just technically the southern border where Caesar Creek stops. The northern border, and then and then you have all Caesar Creek Lake. You can fish all Caesars Creek Lake. And then the northern border is the 380 bridge here at Caesars Creek. So if you look up, this is the upper part of Caesars Creek. You keep going up the actual Caesars Creek. It makes a right. Whatever this is, you're not allowed to fish. It makes a right here at Anderson Fork. You cannot fish upstream of the 380 bridge. You cannot fish this right here. You have to fish downstream all the way through the lake, through the dam, all the way to where it meets the Little Miami. That's the Caesar Creek boundaries. Moving on. Let's see here where we're at next. East Fork, Little Miami. The East Fork, Little Miami, and the Little Miami southern boundary is this line right here. Where this island begins, that is the southern boundary. You cannot fish past right here. We originally were going to make it the end of both. but that doesn't like that'd be too hard to police. This is an easy identifiable thing for me to see. You cannot fish south or below stream of this island right here, the beginning of it. That's the East Fork Little Miami southern boundary. The northern boundary is where the East Fork Little Miami and Turtle Creek meet in Lynchburg, Ohio. If you zoom out, you'll see there's a lot of East Fork Little Miami that can be fished all the way down to East Fork. There's a lot of good bank fishing accessible areas here. Um, so in Lynchburg, where the East Fork Little Miami and Turtle Creek meet, this is the boundary. You cannot fish upstream of this either direction. This is the boundary right here. You might ask, how do I know where people are cutting off, where they're fishing, etc.? When you submit your pictures, I get a heat spot of where you submitted it from. That's how I know you're fishing in the boundaries. You have to have your GPS turned on. Also, like if you don't want your GPS turned on, then don't fish our events because I have to be able to see you're fishing in legal waters. To go down to East Fork, all of this is East Fork Lake. All of East Fork Lake is legal. Once you hit these tributaries though, they're cut off. Trimble Run, you can't fish Trimble Run. Once you're down here, you can't fish up here because that's not East Fork. That's not the East Fork River. Same thing down here. That's Sugar Tree Creek. You can't fish. I don't even know if it's accessible, but you can't fish it. This is all fishable though. This is the actual original river. The dam area, all this, that's all navigable. That's all fishable, legal fishing waters. Moving on to the Great Miami. Great Miami is real. It's probably the easiest one. The 275-74 bridge. That's your southern boundary. And if you see, there is a ton of river below that you cannot fish. That goes to the Ohio River. The northern boundary is the 235 bridge in Quincy, Ohio. The river flows from right to left, from west to east, so you cannot fish east after the 235 bridge in Quincy, Ohio. That's the Great Miami boundaries. That's southern and north. Now we're on the Little Miami, I believe. Little Miami, again, that's your southern boundary. It's the same exact one as the East Fork, but then it starts going up. Your northern boundary is the 73 bridge in, what's the name of this city? I forget. Is this Corwin? Corwin, Ohio. The 73 bridge in Corwin, Ohio is your Little Miami northern boundary right here. That's pretty simple. Keep on going. Maumee River. The southern boundary of Maumee River is the Indiana border. Can't be any simpler than that. That's where the Maumee starts. This is where the Maumee ends for our tournament's sake. Can't fish Indiana. It's an Ohio trail. Can't fish Indiana. The northern boundary is the 90/80 bridge, the Ohio Turnpike. You cannot fish north of this, which means all of this is out of play. Some Maumee fishermen have already complained to me saying like this is some of the best fishing on the Maumee. Well, the best fishing on the Little Miami is close to the Ohio River. The best fishing on the Scioto is close to the Ohio River. The best fishing on the Great Miami is close to the Ohio River. The best fishing on the Maumee is probably closer to Lake Erie. We are intentionally getting away, like I said earlier, from those bigger bodies of water to try and make it an inland river series event. So that is your upper border, your northern border for the Maumee River, all the way down to Indiana. Somebody also said, what's to stop somebody from fishing this in their kayak and then coming down and taking the picture here? There's nothing. You have to have a certain level of faith in your anglers not to cheat. You can cheat in any event. You can stringer fish in any event. There's people will point out certain flaws in online events, and I'm just like, you could do the same thing in a boat event, and no one ever brings it up. You're just bringing it up because we're different. There's nothing stopping somebody. For instance, in the Rising Sun tournament that happens every year, has 200 boats. No one would know if you took your boat off with a trailer, drove to another body of water, fished that, put it back in, drove back. No one would ever know. You have to have faith that your anglers are listening to the rules and not breaking the boundaries. So that's the northern boundary there. Keep going. The Maumee, or the Muskingum. We're on the Muskingum now. Muskingum River, the southern boundary. You'll see it's a different. I'm using the terrain now. It's the lock and dam at Low, Ohio, right here. This is the southern boundary right here. You cannot fish up in here, through here. You cannot fish through the lock. This is off limits, even though it says Muskingum River. This is off limits because then I would have to make some imaginary line here, and I don't want to do that. So from Here up is the southern boundary for the Muskingum. The northern boundary is actually where I believe the Muskingum starts. The Walhonding River and Tuscarora River, where they meet in, I can't pronounce the name of this city. It's that Coshocton, Coshton, where this bridge is, the Chestnut Street Bridge in Coshton. That's the northern boundary of the Muskingum River. And last but not least, how we started all this. The Scioto River, the southern boundary, is still 348. If you zoom out and look, again, the 348 bridge is quite a ways away from the Ohio River. So that's your southern boundary. And your northern boundary is the South Detroit Street Bridge in Kenton, Ohio. This is probably the longest stretch of river of any of the rivers on the list. If you take a look real quick, here's Kenton, Ohio, right here. And if I'm not mistaken, Portsmouth is about right here. Am I right? Yep, about right here. So that means our bridge is about up here. So that is, I'm pretty sure it's over 100 miles worth of side of river you're allowed to fish. And those are the boundaries explained. Again, bank and kayak only, no boats, no tributaries. We have 4 reservoirs. Main reason is one, we have a backup now. We don't ever have to cancel. But the other reason is there's no competitive advantage. All right, kayak Mike out of here.